Greetings, Neo-Swedenborgians. I want to say something more about Old Blue here. Anyone who has watched this from the beginning might remember my older fiddle, which was blue. That fiddle, I bought it at Sandy Bradley's auction in Seattle, and it was in pieces. It was all broken, and it had 10 different things wrong with it. And I was looking at it, and I couldn't figure out what was wrong. I mean, how did all these things happen to this one fiddle? And I finally concluded that somebody had decided to take up fiddle repair, and their first step in their process was to damage this fiddle in all these different ways. And I am no expert in fiddle repair, mind you, but I still rose to this task, and I put this fiddle all back together and painted it blue. Or I painted the front of it blue. The back of it, there was a part that was real nice that I let show. There was nice wood underneath. But anyway, I used to play that fiddle. It's in my earlier videos. And then when I moved into Jack's house, I put that in a case and I put it in the garage. And about 6 months later, and I was, practicing on a different fiddle. 6 months later, I opened it up, and it was covered with thick mold. It had gotten rained on, and then all this mold grew in the case. So opening the case was like opening a kind of a sea monster, and the fiddle was warped and wrecked, and it was basically no more. And these fiddles become like companions to us, and we sometimes name them. We spend a lot of time with them, and so I mourned that fiddle. I grieved that fiddle, and sometime after that, so I was helping this guy Jack out, who some of you know or knew, and Jack wanted to repay me in some way, and so he bought this fiddle for me. Jack Clements, Weird in the Beard himself, bought me this fiddle. And I mean, it's good. I'm not trying to endorse this, but I will plug it in one way, which is that it's a good sturdy fiddle for $800. For $800, you have an electric violin that is also an acoustic violin, and it's not fragile in the way a lot of other violins are. I had a violin back in the day I bought off eBay, and it had a repair tag from 1796. So in London. So there's no telling exactly when it was made, but it was old enough to have been broken and repaired by 1796. And it was a beautiful thing, this violin, but I always felt like it was about to break again, because their violins are fragile and you should be careful with them. And this is a Glasser AEX. And it is also fragile in its way, but it is not as fragile as these precious things that are like gems you get out of the violin shop. So I would recommend something like this. Not everybody wants to get electric. You can also get like an $800 complete violin set. And if you go through a quality company and you spend $800, find a reputable company, figure to spend $800 altogether. You'll get a case, a bow, a violin, rosin, a chin rest, and maybe like a tuner, right? For $800, and you're in. So this is one route. This is Glasser AEX, and I like it, and it's not so fragile. But I'm not endorsing. This is not a paid advertisement. Anyway, it's a digression. So anyway, the point was. Old Blue was destroyed, and I grieved Old Blue for a little while, and I still played my other fiddle. And then Jack wanted to do something for me in return for what I was doing for him, so he bought this violin for me. He spent $800 on this violin for me, and so this kind of reminds me of Jack too. But then I started to see it as the replacement for Old Blue, and as you see, I named it Old Blue, and I wrote Old Blue on it. And then I outlined the old blue and yellow. So the irony is, it's a red violin, and I call this red violin Old Blue. Ha ha ha. Also, it's an Australian reference because my sister, I named my blue fiddle after my sister, who died in 1986 at the age of 23. And she had red hair. Lois had red hair. And in Australia, they have this kooky Australian custom where they call people with red hair blue. So let's say you didn't know somebody in America and they had red hair and they walked out, hey, Red, what's up, you might say. Well, in Australia, they're upside down. They're on the other side, the bottom of the earth. So they call redheads blue. And Lois was a redhead, and I imagined her going to Australia if she had lived and being called Blue. So I named Old Blue after my sister Lois. And then basically, I started feeling like she came back in this fiddle. So what I'm talking about is not fiddles, but reincarnation. There's another reincarnation story within this story of mine, which is my cat Tulip, I suspect, was Bongo reincarnated. So I was talking about Allan Kardec the other day and the Spiritists, and the Spiritists are really big on reincarnation, and it fits into their worldview in such a way that you can make sense of a lot of things using reincarnation. Now, Swedenborg and the spiritualists, like Francesco, who I read, don't talk about it, and J. Hewitt Mackenzie has a section on it in which he says he's not going to draw a conclusion because he doesn't have enough information. So the sources I generally draw from either don't talk about reincarnation or do not include it. That's J. Hewitt Mackenzie, Francesco, Wanderer in the Spirit Lands, Rebecca Springer, Intramuros, and Life in the World Unseen by Hugh Benson. All four of those, the only mention of reincarnation is in J. Hewitt Mackenzie, and he only mentions it to say he's not going to talk about it. So I'm contrasting now what's called spiritualism, which Houdini debunked in the 20s, and was a kind of a European and American phenomenon. I'm contrasting that with Spiritism. Spiritualism, Houdini, versus Spiritism, and Allan Kardec and Chico Xavier. And the one, if I were to think of what the Spiritists would think, the one the Spiritists wouldn't want me to leave out is, of course, Andre Luis. Andre Luis is the narrator in No Solar, Chico Xavier's book. Thanks. See you.